Welcome to the Emerging Vendors Podcast. I'm your host, Paco Lebron. Join us in this new Pitch It IT program podcast series as we highlight a new and emerging vendor who is changing the game and making a big impact in the MSP space. Let me go ahead and introduce my co-host. We have none other than Mr. Sean.lardo. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Paco, thanks for asking. The weather is actually not bad. Dude, yesterday I was sitting outside and, in Pittsburgh, sitting outside right now is really nice.
Nice.
It was like 51 degrees.
Yep, it's a high 46, 47 over here. So not too shabby compared to when we last recorded these. It was like 10,
it was
feeling
so
like
bad.
-1. Yeah, it was terrible.
It was so bad. I had to actually wear a turtleneck. And I don't know if I belong in turtlenecks. But anyway.
Sounds good. But I'm excited. We're going to be talking with Trammie Anderson, Chief Strategy Officer over at Vonahi later on in this episode.
Yes.
But before we go into that, I want to talk about one of my favorite things. It is TechCon Unplugged. TechCon Unplugged will be in Woodbridge, New Jersey, September 7th to the 10th at the Delta Hotels Woodbridge. Join us for an evening mixer as we kick off 2.5 days of content to help your business save money, save time, and improve services. And that means specifically how you can get some tangible things so that you can take home and actually implement into your business. This show is for any size IT solution provider, whether you're an emerging MSP or you're a veteran in the space. This is the place for you. Tickets are on sale for early bird pricing at $199. Get your tickets today. Head over to techconunplugged.com. All right, Sean. Again, super excited. This is, I think, number 3 in the list of episodes that we have coming out for this show. Obviously, we're doing this show specifically to really highlight a lot of the emerging vendors that are coming into the space, right? And really trying to help them or give them as much exposure as possible. And the ability to do that is we do have, obviously, ConnectWise has this program for Pitch It, which we've talked a little bit about in the past. But for those that may not have caught any of those episodes, and this is the first one that they're listening to, can you dive a little bit more into Pitch It and kind of what it's all about?
Sure. Yeah, as you mentioned, emerging vendors are extremely important in our space, especially forever now, because at one point ConnectWise was an emerging vendor, right? But what Pitch It is, it's, think of Shark Tank. That's exactly what it turns into. It's a competition for startup vendors that are going to be able to help the MSPs with their total mission, which is supporting customers. And they also will be aligned really well in the community that we work, that you, me, and everybody else is in, right? ConnectWise's involvement is, we sponsor this. This is a competition for a grand prize. First place winners win 70 grand. Second place wins 30 grand. But the goal behind all of it, again, is to find these emerging vendors that are willing to go through a 16-week accelerator program where they get education. They also do things with you and me and a bunch of other communities and promote themselves and building their brand. But at the end, 3 finalists will go to IT Nation in November and compete on stage. So you got to be a little bit thick-skinned so you can be ready to go on stage. Because, you and I both were there at one point where it was our first time going on stage ever. And it's difficult. Even presenting, even being on a webinar when you're live streaming. First few times I did that, I was so nervous about, it was not dumb things, but I was just nervous. But the Pitch It program has been around for 5 years now. We've had a lot of great vendors come up through the ranks. Matter of fact, last year, one of our good friends, John Hart and Saslio, they were acquired from Aavik, and they were in the program last year. So we've had really good, very good technologies, very good companies. The goal is to find as many as possible to get involved. The application process opened up February 1st. It doesn't end until the end of April, rather. And the competition, the season will kick off in March, or I keep saying March, in May. I don't know why. It's my birthday in March. I guess I'm still crying about that happening. So yeah, the competition kicks off in May, and really, it's a good opportunity for vendors to get themselves out there and get themselves, accustomed to the ConnectWise ecosystem and involve themselves with the MSPs.
Yeah, I think you said it best, right? Is that, it's such a difficult thing to get on stage, right? Let alone try and talk about your product, your service, and talking about pain points in that limited amount of time. So it definitely gives that ability for running into the program, really helping coach that, go through these processes. Because as you mentioned, you and I have both been on stage before and shows and conferences, and it's nerve-wracking, especially when you have to be like very specific. You have to hit your points. It's not ad lib, but you got to make sure you get to it. I mean, it's a lot tougher than a lot of people think, for sure.
Absolutely. Look at your preparation for simplest of things, a half-hour event. You how much you prep, and you really don't even get it all accomplished either. When you finally go do it, you have to make adjustments. You have to edit accordingly, right? And you have to be authentic still too. And how many times have you been ready for something? You're getting ready for a show in 3 weeks from now to go talk on stage. And from now to 3 weeks from now, all of a sudden something drastic changes in the space. Now, whatever you were going to talk about is changed. You got to talk about that, because that's
I was going to say, it's funny you just say that, because I literally was just on 3 meetings this morning on kind of like a prep meeting for an event that I'm speaking at next week on Friday. And exactly like you said, I had a mindset of what these topics we were going to talk about, and it completely shifted to the focus of something else. So now I have to readjust now a week out from all the preparation that I just had as well. So it just shows that, like you said, sometimes you just got to be able to pivot. You got to be able to get to into a space, and sometimes it just doesn't work out, but you got to make the best out of it and really driving that change as well.
Absolutely. And you got to look prepared. I mean, there's not a time that we don't get on these that we don't look prepared, even if we have to wing something. And that's not just because you're really winging. I think when you're so well versed in the space and you're well read and you're constantly engaged with it, it's not difficult to talk about the things that we can talk about right now. We can make up any topic from a space, and you and I could probably have a 30-40 minute conversation about it. So, but what's important here for us to know is these vendors, they're coming out, they're trying to figure out how to fit in this ecosystem, and what a great way to do it. And I appreciate you agreeing to work with us on it, because this gives these MSPs a chance to see some of the newer technologies coming up. And when they're talking about stack alignment, this is what we're talking about here. This is, you look at last year's competition, and the 3 finalists are all 3 different sectors of business. And if you look at all 18 contestants from last year, there was overlap, of course, because it's inevitable. But you looked at, there were only a handful that were competing against each other as regular businesses, aside from Pitch It. So that goes to show you how important it is to look at things like this, because your stack, and if you look at the CompTIA report, it shows you exactly, they talk about for what this year you should do as an MSP, the things you should focus on as far as use case scenarios are. So these vendors, they all line into that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I'm super excited to bring on, we mentioned Trammie Anderson from Vonahi Security. She is the Chief Strategy Officer, and her business, her company was one of the top 3 finalists for the Pitch It program last year. Let's go ahead and give her a warm welcome. Trammie, how are you today?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me. Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday indeed. I was so excited about Friday. I was calling yesterday, Thursday, Friday Junior, because that's how I was just waiting for the end of the week. But I really appreciate you coming on. We want to really dive into kind of what Vonahi is all about, kind of your experience from going through the Pitch It program. But before we go into all that, Trammie, can you talk a little bit about maybe your origin story? How did you kind of came into the space of the channel / to making your way over to Vonahi Security?
Yeah, definitely. So my background's always been in marketing, and it's always been in tech. I love technology. And it just so happened that I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career, because, marketing, I was starting to hate marketing because of social media, all the content you have to produce, and it's just so much noise. And it wasn't until I landed at Vonahi, I met Alton, because he's a friend of my brother's, and he was starting a new business. He's like, hey, I'm a hacker. I'm automating myself. I'm creating a platform that's going to do this. And so it sounded super exciting. I always thought hacking was, an interesting career. And so I joined the company, and a lot of it was just learning like a fire hose. But yeah, that's kind of how I landed at Vonahi. And since then, we've just been automated network pen testing. And it's been amazing to see that you're actually able to replicate what a hacker does and used to do manually.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, I know that you mentioned one key phrase there, and I do want to highlight it because it is true. When you get into a new industry, especially in the channel for ourselves, you definitely have to kind of take it all in, right? And it is definitely
a lot.
As if you were taking it from a fire hose as well. Obviously, going through the Pitch It program, Must be a new experience because you mentioned that this the business newly formed. You were kind of making your way and kind of scaling and expanding. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved or found out about the program, and also just your experience of how you kind of went through that?
Yeah, so it's interesting because when we first launched our product in 2020, we really didn't know, how it fit in the market. So we were trying to go after, small to medium-sized businesses and enterprise, and we were marketing directly to businesses. And then, we did a post on Reddit, and MSPs were knocking on our door, and so we were like, well, that's interesting. And then our first customer was an MSP. So then we're like, all right, let's apparently there's like a market fit. So that's kind of when we dove into the whole MSP space. And as we kind of learned more about the MSP space, we learned that, integration was going to be a key factor in helping us gain adoption and growth. And of course, that's how we stumbled on ConnectWise and landed at the Pitch It program.
Very cool. Very cool.
You should add your brother. 1 second. You should also add your brother works with you also.
That's right. Last year in January, we finally made enough money to hire my brother from an MSP to join us. So last year was a great year of growth for us, and the business definitely matured because not only did we have someone that was working in the MSP space for 5 to 6 years, but we also through the Pitch It program learned so much about the MSP business.
Very cool. Now, Sean, obviously, when going through this program for Pitch It, there's obviously so many components in there. Is there any of those components that you can highlight that you saw with Vonahi and how they kind of excelled and just really took it all in as they tried to just make sure that they go through the competition, right? But we also had mentioned in the previous episodes is really leveraging the relationships and the knowledge from this program to get even further of just winning the prize money at the end. Is there anything that you could share of what you saw? And then we'll just kick it over to Trammie on just how that was just taking all that in from those particular modules in the program.
Sure. No. So first off, we'll start with the technology itself. It's automated pen testing, which we've already talked about the polarizing conversation of that, right. And the fact that pen testing is essential now, especially since cybersecurity has become such a huge topic in general. Anything cybersecurity already is already a good talk point or a conversation somewhere, somehow, right? But the fact that they were able to do that and automate it too, which is a big deal again, because it's applicable to whether it's a small MSP or a large MSP, right? Because if you're a 1 or 2 man shop, automation is key for a lot of things you're doing in general. So you're just adding on here. Now, go to the other side of it. As well as I do, you vetted out plenty of vendors, Paco, right, as an MSP. And when you're vetting out vendors, you're looking at what problem do they solve? Is it something you need, right? That's it. Then you look at the credibility of them, right? And then you look at, can I work well with them? And those are usually a big components of when you're looking at things. So I will say for Vonahi as a whole, what you'll notice is every time we do a video like this, there's a different person on talking for them. So they've been very good at a universal message that they've standardized. So everybody's saying the same things. So it's obviously it's practice, but it's practice from a core document, a core value that they're doing. They've done a very good job. We love what we do. Exactly. They do. And they've done a very good job. They did a very good job of being approachable, human, and also show, and you got to meet all the stakeholders by watching everything. So you can't not get a hold of somebody. So again, you're able to establish your credibility, you're able to show the value of the product, and you're making yourself a human all in the same breath, which is a very important thing. So those are key components for me. That was key components for our team when we checked them out to see they're one of the community.
Gotcha. Now, Trammie, Sean mentioned, obviously you all had that universal messaging. Was that kind of difficult to kind of nail down as you were trying to communicate on what your product did / just answering the pain points? Or did you find that was probably the easiest part to really, because you love it so much, to be able to explain it to your end client on being able to adopt the product?
I think for us, it was really easy and it was organic only because it all started with our founder, Alton. He started hacking since he was 11. So he completely just finished high school, got his GED, enrolled in college when he was 16 because he was like, I just want to hack. So he's always been super passionate about it. And when you meet someone that passionate about it, it's hard to not buy in. And then for me, being in marketing, I'm also like a skeptical marketer, always data driven. And I'm like, well, I don't know how good it is. So let me prove to me that you're worth like me joining. And so when I actually got to see it in person, and I've been on multiple calls on the early days where I would see Alton like prove people wrong, as nicely as possible. And over time, I was like, okay, like I'm on board. I fully believe in this. And then our COO is actually the former CEO of Trace Security, a company that Alton left to start, Vonahi. And so we're kind of all connected, and we're all here because we believe that what he's doing is really disrupting the market, and it's exciting to see. And now that we have over 300 partners, we did over 10,000 assessments. It's like, well, let's go along for the ride.
Nice. Now let's talk a little bit more about Vonahi security and really what it brings to the channel and to the MSP. You kind of mentioned about it earlier in the episode that it's automated pen testing, but I'm sure that there's so much more to the platform than just automating penetration testing and being able to help diagnose the risk of a particular end user for an MSP or an IT solution provider. Can you tell us a little bit more on how that platform really either saves time, improves service, and most importantly for a lot of IT solution providers is how does it help them make money?
Definitely. So on the time saving part, if anyone has had experience outsourcing a pen test through a third party, or if they're hiring someone to do it in-house, it just takes time, right? If you're doing it manually, it takes about a week to do the pen test, another week to do the reports, and then not to mention there's the logistics, right? Like the scheduling. Hey, we want this pen test kicked off on this day. Can we find a consultant that's available at this day, this time? Are they going to call in sick? We don't know. So those are all the variables that automation helps eliminate. So with our platform, you can just log in and schedule the pen test whenever you need to. So it eliminates a lot of those inefficiencies. In addition to that, they can track their assessment in real time. And again, pen testing is a step further from vulnerability scanning. So a vulnerability scanner could come back with like 100 results, right? So it's like information overload. Whereas a pen test will exploit those vulnerabilities and say, hey, of those 100, these are the 10 you really should care about. Because these are the 10 that would lead to confidential data. So it helps you prioritize what to fix, instead of just going off of what a vulnerability scanner results would say. And then in terms of like growing business, automation allows us to significantly reduce the cost. So you're talking about getting a pen test done 12 times a year for like, a fraction of the cost of a traditional manual pen test. So those are the ways that we're kind of disrupting the market, and any partners that try the product end up loving it, and they see the value almost immediately. And so we've always been really product focused, and I think that's what helped drive user adoption for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you hear automated, you hear penetration testing, and it's one of those where all solution providers are saying we need some of that, because being able to try and do it ourselves, right? We don't know who to go to. Right. And it's usually at the wrong, it's at when it's at the worst possible time, meaning something happened, the insurance provider is asking for these things now, right? And now they're not only asking for it, but on a consistent basis versus just doing a yearly or a quarterly vulnerability scan or penetration testing. Now they're learning our terms. They're trying to understand to help mitigate their risk. And now it's these type of platforms that are going to help to try and alleviate that. So of those two things, and then also you just mentioned, more importantly, is the ability to just not only save that time on looking for someone, trying to hire someone, get the results, then you got to go through the whole list of things that they found out. Whereas you've mentioned now there's this automated way, which I think that's the big key for this year, is everyone's trying to automate their process, whether that is to either take a human's hands off of it, to make things more efficient, and then, or just have the ability to create documentation against it as well. Now, with automation, obviously there is a lot of setup and things that are needed to try and get the process going with any service. How has Vonahi really focused or has really removed or tried to alleviate the resistance of a solution provider or MSP to set up and utilize the product? Because ease of use is so huge when it comes to automation. But, as we all know, takes a little bit of time and a couple things to kind of get the thing going. How has Vonahi addressed that and just really engaging with that community who want to just jump right in?
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to ease of use, that's one of the things we actually learned through Pitch It, like all the things that MSPs care about. So we know that, making the platform simple to use is probably key, making it simple and then providing the right support in a really timely and a responsive manner. So for us, getting a pen test kicked off, you can do that, in under an hour. So for an external penetration test, it's all hosted in AWS. And so there's no agent or anything to install. So I can kick off an external network pen test, in under 10 minutes. On the internal side, we do need something connected to the network for it to do its thing. And so there's an agent that needs to be installed, but our team definitely made that as simple as possible. And I think that agent installation takes about 15 to 30 minutes depending on the environment. So that's kind of how we've handled that. Onboarding is super quick and easy, but yeah, I mean, from the time that you call our team, within an hour we can get an internal or external pen test kicked off. And then also our support. One of the things as a product-led company is we focus heavily on the support side. So our team is super responsive. And anytime someone needs question installing the agent or getting anything kicked off, our team's always there to support that. And we have lots of training videos and a knowledge base. So a lot of investment on the support side.
Yeah, and I can actually vouch for your sales demo and support team, because I ran through a demo we actually had met in passing when conversating with Juan Fernandez, who was one of the judges on the Pitch It program. We were having a hallway conversation, and it was actually you that mentioned, yeah, we're trying to scale with our automated penetration testing, and my ears perked. I said, automated, you say? And so that's when I went ahead and looked into the program. I went through the website, signed up to try and get for a demo. I forgot the gentleman who was running us through was very clear, concise,
Ali.
Understanding. Yep, Ali was and just going through on how to get there. And it was one of those where it's rare that you see someone who's doing the demo talk nuts to bolts on the ability of what the product can do from setup to actually implementation. And it just speaks to the great team that you have over there at Vonahi. And I can mention that the ease of use and the resistance barrier to try and remove to allow a solution provider to utilize the product. But B, it just speaks to why emerging vendors are amazing and why they're always great to work with, because there is always that concept of, will they be around? Have they invested as much into the technology? And furthermore, but what is the positive side to that, and kind of what you explained, is that the ability of sticking together as a cohesive unit and being agile and understanding and listening and feedback. Me and Sean had a conversation before that, sometimes the forums are a little, they're a bunch of jerks. And I
don't think we use the word jerks, but yeah.
I've dealt with some Reddit trolls,
Yeah. So, and I think, for them, it's the whole, and I say this because, sometimes, I'm a very big thing, and this is not for everybody who has an opinion on Reddit and whatnot. They may have a background, they probably are experienced, and they know what they're talking about. I'm talking about those that are speaking opinion as fact, and then now they've swayed an entire market because they just don't understand what they don't see. It's those that give really emerging vendors. I have a friend of mine who's an emerging vendor who started his backup company about 5 years ago and has created a great community, but he was just getting dogged because he was a smaller team. And it's just the lack of understanding that the product is good. And so, and I commend you for that, because it just, just the way that you've all have presented yourself is just a matter of, yes, you're an emerging vendor, but you can tell that it is a serious notion. You are putting your efforts and energy involved to really make a difference with what you're bringing to the table for the channel. So, Sean, not sure if there's anything you wanted to add on to that from
I
my whole spiel.
do want to. It's about doing your due diligence, right? And that's what we're talking about here. And we've been in the space long enough. We've seen people that will just bark without really doing it. And you've seen people that really are well thought. And we went through it actually with Vonahi. I went through it with them. They reached out to me. They mentioned some people that were saying things that it can affect your business. And I know who you're referring to as far as creating a great community. I've seen it happen. I've been a victim. I've been part of it, you know? And so they reached out to me and said, hey, do you know these people? And I said, absolutely. We scheduled time with these guys. They actually, and I stress, like, you got to do your due diligence. You shouldn't just, first off, every MSP is looking for all the right tools to use. So if you're going to be a voice in this, the day you choose to be a voice in this community or in this industry, you better know what you're talking about, because you're going to affect the livelihoods of a lot of people. And when we went down the path, they offered a free POC to these two individuals, and for lack of a better term, we shut their mouths, which was really good. It shut them up. They became believers, and it validated from my side, selfishly speaking. It validated my program. It validated them. It makes sense, you know. And I think it's important for a vendor to take note of this also.
Absolutely.
If you guys don't have any vendor out there that watches this, should know that if people are talking about this or talking about you negatively, you first have to check internally, make sure it's not you guys, the way you present it, right? Maybe your messaging is wrong, or maybe you're one of those people that say really dumb things on social media sites, like some people I know that do it that shouldn't, and get in arguments with your partners. Don't. That's something to take offline. You need to talk to them, and But then there's the other side where sometimes you have to nip it in the bud and go directly at the source of the problem, which could be them too. So you guys did a good job with it. You showed what you guys had, and that was important, and it created you advocates.
Yeah, definitely. Those are the best. Yeah, anyone that's skeptical, because I mean, I've been told like, oh yeah, you guys are selling snake oil. And prior to Pitch It, we didn't do any events, like in-person events. And so when we met some people at IT Nation, some MSPs were like, we weren't going to buy from you guys because we thought you guys were just made up. Like, there's no way you can automate a pen test. And then they saw us in person at a conference. They're like, oh, these guys are legit. And then, of course, Sean was there endorsing us. And so that definitely helped validate that we are making a dent in the MSP space. And it was a great way to, last year I would say is a big year for us. And I think Pitch It was really integral in helping us get into the channel.
But it was easy though. Let's be clear. You guys made it very easy. Again, back to standardizing your approach and your messaging. It makes it easy for me to say things about you when I don't even work for you. Right? Yeah. If I can't, it's like, think about you can think back to when you were a kid and remember certain commercials, right? It's because whatever they said on the commercial was easy to understand and relate and tell your friends. It had a gimmicky song or whatever it did, right? But you still remember certain things, and that's what you got to do. You gotta make it simple for me to understand what you guys do, and then show that you can do it. And now there's credibility, validity, and there's an easy message, and that's all that really matters at the end of it. So you guys did a really good job you guys did a great job with it. To be honest, you guys did a very good job.
Thanks. We really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Yeah. Thank you.
We learned a lot through the program, so that helped.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Now, Trammie, as we kind of round out the show here, I want to make sure, obviously, we give some spotlight to you, what you all are doing at Vonahi. Is there anything that you want to share before we go ahead and end the show, just about Vonahi, how the Pitch It program has helped you in going into 2023, maybe any new goals or things that you may be doing coming up here in the new year?
Yeah, definitely. I would encourage any vendor that is looking to grow or get into the MSP space to consider Pitch It, only because one of the things I loved about the program was one of the first sessions that we did was on your mindset. They did like a mode assessment. And it was that was like a great way to kick off the program, was like, what kind of mindset do you have growing your business? Are you a startup? Are you a value builder? Are you a balance builder or an empire builder? Right. And the thing that made me really remember those things was there's a whole table that shows you characteristics of like your family. So like for startups, you're ignoring your family. If you're an empire building, you're putting a pause on family. If you're a balance builder, you're prioritizing your family. So so I learned a lot about that. And I think it's really important to understand your business mindset, where you want to go, where you are today, and where you want to go with your business. So I think the Pitch It program really helped us understand like where we are at that time and then how we wanted to grow the business. So it's super valuable for us. And, when we started it, we were in startup mode, but when we finished the program, I would say now we're like an empire builder. We're tripling our growth every single year. We started at 150 partners when we started the Pitch It program. We ended last year with 302 partners. And so for us, I just want to continue that growth. It's like I'm excited now. Now I'm like, I want to triple that. I want to get to 900 by the end of this year. So yeah, I really think that involving in Pitch It will really help you grow if you invest time into the program and do all the things, talk about it, tweet about it, share it on social, get connected, add all these people up. My LinkedIn connection has grown exponentially since I started Pitch It through all these podcasts that we do. So I think it's a great way to build brand awareness and to also see what you're up against. There's tons of emerging vendors. It's always good to see how you compare to them. I'm glad we ended up in the top 3.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, congratulations to all your growth. Congratulations on obviously making it to the top 3 of the finalists of Pitch It. I think you are going to have a lot of great input to those that are joining, obviously, the space and how they're going through, especially as they try to find out more on Pitch It. Trammie, if anyone wanted to know more about Vonahi or maybe pick your brain or get as far as a quick chat, what's the best ways that they should reach out?
Yeah, definitely. You can visit our website, www.vonahi.io. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm super responsive, very friendly. But yeah, hit us up.
Very cool. Very cool. Sean, my friend, it's the end of another episode.
I know, right?
Any lasting words that you have before we close out?
I can't really do anything better than Trammie just did, so I can't really say much on that. But I would say, yeah, definitely take advantage of the program if you're an emerging vendor. If you're an MSP, definitely pay attention to the program to get introduced to new technologies, or maybe some that are existing that you just didn't, that you saw but never really gave a minute to, and support this. I mean, I would ask that all these MSPs.
It's free.
Exactly. It is free. It is free for you to be part of Pitch It itself. It's free for these MSPs to attend this stuff. They're already going to be, especially when it comes to the finals, they're going to be, anybody who comes to IT Nation Connect is going to see them anyway, but support the program. Because as long as the MSPs support this too, and the vendors apply, the program will just get larger, and it will keep going and going and going. ConnectWise. Other than we know the prize money equals $200,000 right now, but the amount of money they've invested between me, the team that works with me, all things that we do around it. I mean, even just for IT Nation itself, we paid for the bar, we paid for all that stuff to be there, just because we want to make sure everybody had a good experience. It's a lot of money. They've invested a lot in this program. And again, for Trammie and companies like that, it's free. So by all means, you should be looking into it. No matter what side of the house you're on, you should be looking into it.
Very cool. Very cool. Again, Trammie, really appreciate you coming on the episode here. Sean, always a pleasure to have you co-host here on this new podcast we have. And thank you for all tuning in. Tune in every Friday to catch more of this series. Watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, hit the notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. We thank you for watching, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.